While you've been praying for a door to open, the door has already begun moving toward you? What if, while you've been asking heaven for change, change has already started, just quietly, hidden, unseen, because some miracles arrive loudly, but many begin in silence. And maybe that is where your miracle lives right now, in silence, in movement you cannot yet measure. Because maybe the greatest mistake tired hearts make is assuming if they can't see movement, there is none. But unseen does not mean inactive. Hidden does not mean absent. Delayed does not mean denied. And maybe that changes something in you today. Because maybe what you've called nothing happening is actually divine motion. Imagine that. Answers moving, while you thought heaven was still. Doors aligning, while you thought life was paused. Faithforhealing, while you felt forgotten. And maybe the thing you're asking God for is already on its way. Wouldn't that change how you breathe, how you pray, how you wait? Because maybe you are not waiting on a miracle. Maybe a miracle is moving toward you. And perhaps that is why this season has felt stretched. Because something is nearing, and thresholds often feel tense. Read that again. Thresholds often feel tense. Because right before change, there's often pressure, resistance, uncertainty, and many mistake that for defeat. But maybe it is transition. Maybe the tension you feel belongs to a door about to open. And maybe you are closer than you realize. Closer to healing, closer to peace, closer to breakthrough, closer to the life you have imagined. Closer. And perhaps that word alone is medicine. Closer. Say it. Closer. Because maybe hope returns when you remember things could be nearer than pain suggests. And maybe today you remember, what if you were standing in the middle of answered prayer, but only seeing the unfinished part? Because humans often judge stories too early. We call things broken mid-restoration. We call things dead mid-resurrection. We call things lost mid-guidance. Too early. And maybe you have judged your story too early. Because maybe what feels unfinished is simply in process. And process can look messy, confusing, incomplete. But incomplete does not mean absent. It means becoming. And maybe becoming is where you are. Maybe what you call waiting is answered prayer unfolding slowly. Because some prayers arrive as events, others arrive as process. And process miracles often go unnoticed until later. Maybe yours is one. Maybe your prayer for peace began being answered when old chaos surfaced to heal. Maybe your prayer for purpose began being answered through uncomfortable stretching. Maybe your prayer for breakthrough began being answered the day old patterns started dying. Maybe answer has looked different than you expected, but different does not mean absent. And perhaps today you see that. Maybe you are not outside miracle. Maybe you stand inside unfolding miracle. And maybe that changes how you see everything. Because if answered prayer is already unfolding, then this chapter is sacred. And maybe you are standing in the middle of what you prayed for. Even now, most people think they reach the life they long for through more striving, push harder, force more, control everything. But what if the life you want comes closer through surrender? What if peace is not reached by chasing harder, but releasing deeper? Because maybe you have exhausted yourself trying to force what can only be received. And maybe God has been whispering, let go, trust me, stop forcing doors, stop carrying outcomes, stop gripping what I asked you to surrender. Because maybe the breakthrough you want is on the other side of release. How many things have you tried controlling that were never yours to carry? Maybe too many. And maybe that weight has tired your soul. But what if today you set some of it down? What if surrender is not loss, but liberation? Because often what we surrender makes room for what heaven wants to give. Open hands receive. Clench one's struggle. Maybe open hands change your future. Maybe surrender does. And perhaps the life you want, is not reached through one more anxious effort, but one deeper trust. What if that is true? Then maybe you are closer than you realize, not through striving, through surrender, and that may change everything. What if the very thing you have been resisting holds the breakthrough you've been praying for? Sit with that, because sometimes we pray for change while resisting the process that creates it. We ask for courage, then run from situations requiring courage. We ask for healing, then resist the exposure healing needs. We ask for new life while protecting old patterns. And maybe that has been the tension. Not that breakthrough is absent, but that breakthrough is hidden inside the very growth you've been avoiding. What if the hard conversation is where freedom begins? What if letting go is where peace enters? What if the step that scares you is the one carrying your next chapter? Because maybe fear has mislabeled holy invitations as danger. And perhaps today that lie loses power, because maybe what you resist is not threatening you, it is stretching you. And stretching is often doorway language, doorways into more. And maybe your next breakthrough is not far away. Maybe it is hidden inside one surrendered act you've delayed, one obedience, one release, one brave move. And if so, you are closer than you realize, closer through the very thing you thought was obstacle. Maybe obstacle was doorway all along. And maybe that changes how you move now. There are moments when life seems to stand still, not because heaven stopped moving, but because a yes is waiting. Your yes, and maybe some future you long for, is waiting on one wholehearted yes. Yes to trust, yes to obedience, yes to becoming, yes to walking forward before you feel ready. Because maybe readiness is overrated. Maybe willingness matters more. Because many destinies did not begin with people feeling prepared. They began with people saying yes, despite fear, despite uncertainty, despite not knowing the whole map. And maybe that is your invitation, not to know everything, to say yes anyway. Because yes moves things. Yes opens doors. Yes shifts atmospheres. Yes changes people, maybe even generations. And perhaps you have been asking, when will my future begin? While your future whispers, when will you say yes? Powerful question. And maybe today something in you answers. Yes. Yes, I trust. Yes, I move. Yes, I let go. Yes, I become. And maybe that simple yes starts a chain reaction you cannot yet imagine. Because futures often begin with holy yes. And maybe yours does too. What if change has already begun? Not the dramatic kind yet. The deeper kind. The root kind. The kind that starts unseen. What if, even while listening, something in you shifted? A belief, a fear, a possibility. Because real change often begins that quietly. And perhaps you're already standing at the edge of change, not approaching it, standing at it. Would you believe that? Because edges feel strange. Part old chapter, part new chapter, part uncertainty, part possibility. And maybe that is exactly where you are, at the edge. And edges require courage. But edges also mean something new is near. And maybe new is nearer than you know. Maybe peace, maybe calling, maybe breakthrough, maybe life opening. And perhaps all this season was bringing you here, to this edge, this threshold, this beginning. Because maybe you're not behind, not forgotten, not stuck. Maybe you are poised, ready, positioned, closer than you realize. And one day, you may look back and see, change began the moment I believed. I was closer than I thought. Maybe that moment is now. So breathe, trust, step, say yes, release, move. Because maybe you're already standing at the edge of everything changing. And maybe that is holy ground.